I got an email from a company that doesn't exist. Then I started seeing a man no one else could see. Days later, I woke up in a world I only knew from my dreams. And what I discovered could shatter reality itself. Stick around. This is the story they don't want you to remember.
My name is Elian Drax, and if you're hearing this, then maybe I finally figured out how to say it all without being branded crazy. I used to be a software engineer in Austin, Texas. Mid-30s, remote job, drank black coffee, liked building keyboards, and hated small talk. Just a regular dude trying to mind his own business and code clean. But what happened to me last year, you won't believe it. Hell, I still don't believe it half the time, and I lived it. It started, like all eerie stories do, with a weird email. Not spam, not phishing, just a plain, old-looking text email from a sender that said, Loxon Systems Internal Ping, which was odd because I didn't work at a company called Loxon. No one does. Google it, nothing, just an empty LLC registered in Delaware. Anyway, the email said one thing. You are now active. The threshold has been crossed. Do not reply. I stared at the screen for a long minute, laughed nervously, and deleted it. Thought maybe some bot misfired or someone was trying ARG crap on Reddit. Didn't think much of it. Until I started seeing him. It was subtle at first. A guy in a charcoal trench coat with a limp, standing near my apartment building in East Austin. One day I saw him again. Same coat, same limp, this time outside the co-working space I visited once a week just to fake some social balance. Third time he was on my jogging trail by Libby Bird Lake. Not moving. Just watching. I told my buddy Grint, who I game online with, and he told me straight up, man, you need a tinfoil hat or a therapist. You sure you're not just catching glimpses of the same old homeless dude? Could be. Except when I finally confronted the guy, tried to film him, my phone crashed. Not frozen, like a hard crash, dead screen. And the guy was gone before I could even reboot. I stood there for 15 minutes, breath fogging in the Texas spring air, trying to figure out if I just hallucinated the whole thing. And then came the dreams. Vivid, too. Real. Like walking into someone else's memory, except they were mine. In those dreams, I wasn't Elian, I was something else. I saw cities carved into cliff faces, symbols that felt like language, but melted when I tried to read them. There was one symbol I kept seeing. A 3-sided square made of light. Sounds dumb, but it was beautiful. Terrifyingly beautiful. I started sketching it on napkins, whiteboards, even coded it into a silly HTML5 game just to see what it looked like spinning in motion. That's when the second email came. Different address, still Loxon. You are drawing the eye. Cease all replication. Coordinates incoming. I didn't draw anything publicly. I didn't upload that code. I didn't talk to anyone except Grint about it. Yet they knew. Coordinates. That shook me. I didn't want to go, but curiosity's a drug, especially for lonely coders with more curiosity than sense. The coordinates pointed to a patch of land near Marfa, West Texas. Middle of nowhere. I rented a beat-up Jeep, loaded a tent and a drone, and told myself this was just going to be a weekend camping trip. I needed a break anyway. I drove 7 hours through silence and sun-baked roads. My playlist ran out, and I didn't even notice. Something in me was shifting, like an old part of me was waking up. When I got to the site, it was nothing, just empty desert. No weird buildings, no antennas, no men in black waiting to zap my memory. Just a sound. Low hum. Like subwoofer level, but from the earth itself. Then I saw her. Woman in a faded gray hoodie and combat boots, standing dead still in the sun. Her name, I'd learned later, was Thalia, and she knew my name before I opened my mouth. "Elion," she said calmly, like we were long-lost friends, "your resonance is unlocked. The Watchers have flagged you. There's no turning back." I laughed. Like, out loud. Thought maybe this was some weird cult or interactive TikTok performance. She didn't blink. "You've seen the eye in your sleep, haven't you?" I stopped laughing. "How do you know about that?" "I see it too. And I've been marked for longer." She handed me a notebook filled with diagrams that looked exactly like what I'd drawn, but hers were more complete, like she'd solved the parts I didn't understand. Over the next 3 hours, as dusk swallowed the sky, she explained everything, or at least her version of it. She called it the shard theory, that our world overlays with thousands of near worlds, like slices of glass layered on top of each other. Some people are cut by the friction between layers, people like us. Dreams, echoes. The eye, a universal anchor. The Watchers, entities that monitor resonant anomalies so that no one accidentally crosses into a shard where they don't belong. It sounded insane, but I felt like I'd always known it was true. Then she gave me the device. It looked like an obsidian disc, no bigger than a hockey puck, covered in grooves that pulsed faintly under moonlight. She said, "This is a resonator. If you tune it correctly, you can step across." I didn't sleep that night. The stars felt too sharp, too close. And in the morning, Thalia was gone. No trace. Her boot prints? Gone. The notebook?
Still with me? The resonator, ice cold in my bag, humming like it had a heartbeat. Back in Austin, my world started glitching. Emails would vanish from my inbox. Street names would switch for a second, then revert. Once, I passed my own building, and it had an entirely different number on the door. And I started noticing strangers with that same empty expression, like they were watching me, but trying to act like they weren't. Not just one, dozens, everywhere. It wasn't paranoia. It was surveillance. And then came the night. Everything changed. I was back at home, lights dimmed, trying to forget all of it. I'd thrown the resonator into my drawer, stopped sketching the eye, blocked every weird number that tried to call me. I just wanted to be normal again. But the eye doesn't forget you once it finds you. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, and the resonator was on my chest, glowing. My room shimmered like heat waves, walls bending, light bending. My reflection in the mirror wasn't mine. And then I heard his voice. "Finally, the bridge is opening," it whispered. I froze. Not just because of the voice, but because it came from inside my head, not through my ears. It was like thought wrapped in static. My body was paralyzed, not in a dream paralysis way, but like my nerves were unsure of what dimension they belonged to. The resonator pulsed faster. I could feel it vibrating through my sternum like it was syncing with something inside me. The mirror was still there, but the version of me inside it, he was smiling. I wasn't. "You're ready," the voice said again. "Say the phrase." "What phrase?" I managed to choke out. It hurts to speak, like my throat was rejecting language itself. Then I saw my reflection mouth the words silently. Caliph, Euron Asha. I don't know why I said them. Maybe it was a reflex. Maybe that phrase was buried in my code, hidden in some ancient cell memory. But the moment I did, reality bent inward. A sound like thunder underwater cracked through the room, and the air shimmered into fractals. Every wall, every object, even the dust in the air looked like it had been translated into polygons, folding over themselves, glitching like a corrupted video game.
And then I dropped. Not in space, not in a dream, just down. Like gravity had changed vectors, and reality lost track of where here was. I landed on a stone. Not concrete, not marble, stone. Warm, smooth, humming with energy like an electric fence. The sky above me was purple with gold veins, and the stars were moving, like insects under a microscope. I was standing at the edge of a massive city, carved entirely into the side of a cliff that hung upside down. I'm talking about hundreds of glowing windows, bridges looping in figure eights through the air, and towers that looked like tuning forks made of glass and fire. And then I heard applause. A crowd had formed around me. Tall figures, most human-shaped, but not quite human. Their eyes were solid silver, no irises. Some had antlers, others shimmered as if they were made of shifting oil. And at the front stood a man. No, a being, dressed in robes of woven light. Welcome home, Elion Drex. Or should I say, Verhin Tal, the one who returned. I stood there, mouth open like an idiot. I wanted to scream, or maybe just reset my brain. But I couldn't deny what I felt in that moment. I belonged there. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. I mean, I literally belonged there. My bones felt lighter, my thoughts cleaner. That itch I'd had my whole life, the one that made me feel like I was watching the world through glass, gone. The Aurex introduced his dominators as the High Architect of the Concordant Shard of Yunvesa. Yeah, those are a lot of words. Still trying to unpack them. But he told me I had crossed back into my original point, that Earth, or the Earth I thought I knew, was just one of countless filtered realities where minds like mine were seeded to develop resonance. I was what they called a returned one, someone who had fragmented into another shard during the Great Cycle collapse thousands of years ago, forced to reincarnate in lower dimensions until the signal realigned. It sounded absurd, except every part of me agreed with him. It wasn't knowledge, it was memory. As he spoke, things came back to me. Not like remembering a vacation, more like remembering how to walk. I remembered piloting light ships through the shard streams. I remembered crafting glyph engines from synthetic emotion. I remembered Thalia, my bonded echo who crossed the void to find me. Oryx said the Watchers would now come for me. They are not guardians. They are jailers. They hold the gates closed between shards to keep beings like you from waking. But why? I asked. Because when enough returned awakens, the architecture fails, the lie crumbles, and their dominion ends.
In Yunvesa, I spent what felt like weeks relearning who I was. I was given a chamber with a floating map of interconnected shards, hundreds of them, orbiting a broken central point labeled Solum. I trained with a being named Ruvian who could split into 3 versions of himself mid-combat. I saw things I still can't describe without sounding like a conspiracy nut on a podcast. But I knew I had to go back. Earth wasn't just some throwaway shard. It was a keystone, and too many of us were trapped there, dreaming of places we couldn't name, designing tech we barely understood, and suffering under systems built to keep us asleep. So Oryx gave me a choice. Stay. Live out my years as a returned among the stars and harmonics, or return and break the threshold from the inside. You already know which one I chose, or else you wouldn't be hearing this. I came back through the shard gate, only this time I had control. My body landed back in my apartment like nothing had changed,
but everything had. I could see the watchers now. They looked human, but shimmered at the edges. They couldn't get too close without glitching. My resonance was like fire to them. Thalia returned too. She wasn't gone, just waiting. When she stepped out of the alley behind my building like it was nothing, we didn't even speak. We just nodded. We were in sync again. Together we built something. A glyph binder disguised as a smartwatch, a pulse anchor that we placed inside Austin's data hubs, and a frequency field that spanned 10 blocks downtown, just enough to wake others like me, the cut ones. And they started coming. Designers, musicians, cryptographers, people who had always felt displaced in their own skin. We called ourselves the Nullborn, a name that felt like both a curse and a revolution. And the Watchers, they fought back. They erased our names from systems, frozen our accounts, had fake cops raid our safe houses. Some of us vanished. Some came back wrong. We fought anyway, because the lie only works if you believe it. The first real battle wasn't in some glowing otherworld. It was in a parking garage. We were meeting with 2 new recruits, Melon, a VR artist who'd been dreaming in binary since he was 6, and Rika, a nurse who had once flatlined and come back claiming she had spoken to a city made of light. Standard Nullborn signs. We'd been careful, scrubbed our digital trails, and used pulse-blind drop zones. It didn't matter. They were already waiting. 3 Watchers, tall, perfect, skin smooth like porcelain dipped in chrome. Their suits shimmered like oil slicks, but that wasn't what froze us. It was the way they moved, like frames skipping in a video. No sound, no breathing, no blinking. Just flickering, fast and wrong. "Yield the resonance, no blood," one said. Thalia stepped in front of us, calmly activating her arc-wrapped staff, which disguised itself as a cane in Earth's filtering field. "You'll find us a bit clingy with our resonance," she said with a grin. Then all hell broke loose. I won't bore you with the action movie sequence, but let's just say Melon surprised us all by turning a sonic disruptor embedded in his sketch pad into a force pulse that dropped one of the Watchers to its knees. I hit another with a dampening glyph through the resonator, and for the first time, I felt it shatter. The illusion dropped. For a second, its real form blinked through. Something spidery and crystalline, like a spider made of quartz, hissing in a language that hurt to hear. We won, barely, but Rika was injured, cut by a fractal blade that split flesh and memory. She didn't remember her own name for hours. Watching her stumble through broken memories was the moment I realized something important. We weren't just rebels or resistance fighters. We were librarians of truth, custodians of reality. Our memories, fractured as they were, held the code needed to tear down the veil. And I was the shard key. That became clearer when the signal activated. It was 3 nights after the fight. I was asleep, resting, hooked up to a glyph tether scanner Thalia and I built from a deconstructed 3D printer and parts of an old NES. Suddenly, every device in our safe house lit up. Phones, laptops, thermostats, even the smart fridge, all of it pulsed with the eye sigil, the same shape from my dreams etched in golden lines. Then, like a lighthouse through fog, a voice cut through. "Verental, the boundary weakens. Deliver the echo. Prepare the waking." Thalia's face went pale. "The echo. They want to pull it through," she whispered. "What's the echo?" I asked.
"It's not what," she said. "It's a who."
And that's when I saw her again. Thalaria. Not Thalia the human rebel, but her true self, streaming through like a light being compressed through code. Her form shimmered, half real, her voice multitonal and deep. Elion, I am out of time. You must complete the passage. You must carry the bridge within you. I didn't know what that meant. Still don't fully. But I nodded, because something deep inside me, deeper than instinct, knew she was right. The next day we packed up and moved. The Watchers were circling in tighter rings, and staying in one location for more than a week was suicide. We left downtown and moved our base to an abandoned shipping yard just east of the Travis County line. There, under tarp-covered containers and piles of disconnected servers, we built the Waking Engine. It wasn't just hardware. It wasn't even just resonance. It was a memory. I input every fragment I had from Yunvesa. Thalia added hers from the bridge worlds. Melon uploaded his visual hallucinations, which we realized weren't hallucinations at all, but fragments from a severed shard called Orinth. Rika channeled raw emotional data through her pulse, which had started beating in 2 different rhythms. We were slowly rebuilding what was once known as the Prime Line Pathway, a forgotten route between the shards that would allow others to awaken, even those who had never dreamed before. But to complete it, we needed more. We needed one of them, not a watcher. No, we needed an archivist. Archivists were rare. Exiled watchers who remembered what they once were before they chose control over harmony. Only one had ever been rumored to defect. Chiron. We found her. Or rather, she let us find her. In Chicago, posing as a philosophy professor named Dr. Eliza Gairdner. I'll never forget walking into that classroom during a public lecture, hearing her talk about layered realities in postmodern ontology while drawing accurate shard glyphs on a chalkboard. She smiled as we walked in. Took you long enough. Chiron was everything I wasn't ready for. Calm, towering, emotionally unreadable, but not unkind. She asked me one question before agreeing to help us. Do you still believe in endings? It wasn't rhetorical. The archivists believed that true resonance meant breaking away from linearity, away from beginnings and ends, and toward a continuum of becoming. I answered honestly, I believe in choices. She smiled. That's better. Chiron became our anchor, helping us refine the Waking Engine, converting resonance data into dimensional echoes. She showed us how to write back into the shard lattice, sending signals that vibrated through people's dreams like soft knocks at a forgotten door. And then we launched it. Not publicly, not globally, but enough. Within days, across Austin, L.A., Detroit, Montreal, London, we saw it. Artists sketching the eye, children dreaming in unspoken languages, coders posting fragments of glyphs in GitHub projects they swore just came to them. The resonance was blooming, but so were the Watchers' reactions. They didn't attack physically anymore. They were infected. People we trusted started saying strange things, pausing mid-sentence like they'd been reset, talking about how conformity brings peace, or echoes are errors. It got bad. Even Melon was compromised for 48 hours, long enough to wipe half our backup drives before Thalia stunned him with a burst key. But we pushed through. because resonance isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. And now as I record this final log, the waking engine is almost complete. The final waveform, the bell pulse, as Chiron calls it, will go live in less than 12 hours. If we're right, and the pulse hits the right harmonic angle across enough minds, the veil won't just lift. It'll shatter. And they'll see. They'll remember. They'll wake up. The night before we activated the bell pulse, we sat together in the shipping yard, surrounded by dormant containers, dusty cables, and the low hum of harmonic servers spinning up their final sequence. It was strange how quiet it all felt, like the stillness before a thunderstorm that could either wash the world clean or burn it to ash. We were down to 7 of us now. The rest had either scattered or vanished. Some were lost to the watchers, others just couldn't bear the weight of remembering. Chiron was meditating beneath the resonance arch we built from recycled antenna arrays and glyph-infused copper, her silver eyes closed, hands hovering over nothing, breathing in a pattern that made the dust around her float. She was syncing the frequencies, making sure the engine would sing in harmony across the shards. Every note mattered.
Mellon was sketching a final visual overlay, an artistic representation of the eye that would be embedded in the pulse's subconscious layer. They won't know they've seen it, but they'll feel like they've always known it, he said, pencil dancing like fire across his tablet. Rika stood by the edge of the platform, whispering to herself. She did that often now. Said she could hear future memories, fragments of tomorrow leaking in through the cracks. We're close, she told me, smiling through tears. I saw a child wake up crying today, but they were crying happy tears. Thali and I sat on the roof of an old trailer looking at the stars. They shimmered differently now, like someone had peeled back the sky and showed us the stitching underneath. She leaned her head on my shoulder. If this works, everything changes. And if it doesn't... She paused. Then we try again. The truth doesn't vanish, it waits. I nodded, because she was right. Even failure would leave ripples. At 3:33 a.m., the bell pulse activated. No explosion, no beam of light, no Hollywood climax. Just sound. A tone so low it couldn't be heard, only felt. Like the hum of the earth itself, reverberating through the bones of every person connected to the lattice. At first, nothing happened. Then everything did. Across every time zone, people stopped mid-sentence. Dogs barked at corners that shimmered. Screens flickered. Streetlights pulsed. In New York, a subway operator paused, stepped out, and began sketching spirals on the platform. In Berlin, a mathematician screamed with joy as he suddenly solved an equation he'd been stuck on for 5 years. In Tokyo, a 5-year-old drew the eye on her preschool whiteboard, perfectly symmetrical. The pulse had worked, but so had the fail-safes. The watchers came harder than ever, not subtle, not cloaked. They broadcasted counter-pulses through every major digital node, YouTube streams filled with stuttering patterns, Spotify playlists laced with dissonant glyphs, AI-generated voiceovers designed to cancel out the harmonic waves. But it was too late. The waking had begun. I'll never forget the moment my own mother called me, someone who hadn't believed a single thing I had ever said about dreams, symbols, or the gaps in the world. Elian, she whispered, voice shaking, I saw your eyes in my dream, and behind you a city of glass. Why do I remember it? Why do I miss it? I cried for the first time in years. The resonance was spreading faster than we thought, like a virus of memory. And the more people remembered, the more the world glitched. Not in a bad way, not chaos, but correction.
Street signs started reverting to names from parallel shards. Ruins appeared under abandoned parking lots. People found books in their homes that hadn't existed the day before, written in languages they suddenly knew. The world was stitching itself back together. And with it, we changed. Thalia's skin began to glow at dusk, faint like moonlight on water. Rika could walk through locked doors if she was feeling emotional enough. Melon created three-dimensional glyphs in mid-air using only his breath. Me? I stopped aging. My body synced with my resonance and began to repair itself constantly. My voice deepened, not in tone but in weight. When I spoke, people listened like they already agreed. Then came the final confrontation. Not on a battlefield, not in the digital wilds, but in the space between seconds. Karen had warned us, once the lattice reaches 33% saturation, the architect will descend. We thought she meant Oryx again. But no. The true architect, the one who built the false lattice to imprison minds inside loops of forgetting. It called itself Damarith. It came to me in my dream, not disguised, not soft. A being of shifting angles and logic, pure intention. It stood in the void between shards, towering over the stars. It said, "You have infected the system with hope. You will undo the harmony of ignorance."
I stood my ground. "I didn't infect it," I replied. "I remembered it." Damarith raised its hand. A single gesture, and I felt my mind begin to unravel, memory streams exploding in every direction, as if my consciousness was being deleted in chunks. But then I heard them. All the nullborn, their voices, their dreams, their awakenings. One by one, their resonance linked back to mine. Rika's steady pulse, Thalia's burning clarity, Melon's surreal creativity, Chiron's eternal defiance. The lattice didn't break. It bent back, toward the truth, toward us. I reached deep into the memory core of who I really was, Varental, and ignited the shard bridge from within my own being. The architect screamed, not in sound, but in entropy. And then it vanished. Not destroyed, reduced, returned to the code it tried to overwrite. When I woke up, the world had changed. No announcements, no press, no Twitter trend. But in the eyes of people walking down the street, I saw it. Awareness, depth, connection. Kids weren't dreaming cartoons anymore. They were dreaming of cities like Unvesa, bridges between stars, and symbols we hadn't invented yet. The Watchers? Still around, but fading. Their grip was broken. Now they roam like echoes, powerless, desperate to hide from the very truth they once policed. Thalia and I travel now. We're rebuilding the bridges between shards. Every town, every city, we find the cut ones. We help them remember. We don't wear capes, we don't have a logo. But when someone stares a little too long at the sky, or draws an eye in their notebook without knowing why, that's when we know they've begun to wake. And me? I'm just the storyteller. The boy who used to think he was broken. Turns out I was just waiting to remember. My name is Elion Drax, and this is how I found my way home.
If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching.